Story 1. I have a condition called situs inversus where all of my internal organs are on the inverse side of the typical layout, so my heart and stomach are on my right, liver and gallbladder on my left, etc. The occurrence is 1 in 10,000, so that actually puts me in the 0.01% range. Edit. Updated to accurate percentile. Story 2. I have exploded 3 times. Improvised explosive device, old Soviet landmine, and a rocket strike on my gun truck. I don't think there's a lot of people who can say that who still possess all of their limbs. Since this comment gained much attention, pun intended, I will not respond to people misrepresenting themselves in direct messages, and I am not interested in your content. Seriously, like 6 just today, go away. Story 3. I am one of few adults with something called Harlequin syndrome. It's harmless and literally does nothing beyond making half my face turn red, while the other half does not. So when I'm really hot and sweaty, one side of my face will look like a tomato and the other half will look as if I hadn't been affected at all. Completely normal. There are only about 1,000 people in the United States who have it. I could only find statistics for the United States, so I don't know the worldwide numbers, but it's pretty rare. Maybe not 0.1%, but close. I mention adults because it's common in babies for the first week of their life, but it usually goes away. Story 4. People diagnosed with clinically definite multiple sclerosis who have a disability score of 0. Most people diagnosed with multiple sclerosis have at least some disability. For many, it's low but not 0 because the medication reduces the effects of the illness. For some, the medication does very little and they can be profoundly disabled. I was diagnosed and started medication in 2008. Since then, my disability score has been checked every 6 months by my neurologist and has always been exactly 0. I'm just one of the very lucky ones who responds very well to the medication. Story 5. Survivors of pancreatic cancer. This blew up more than I expected. My story is on my profile. I counsel people going through this now. Please message me if you would like to talk. The best advice I can give is to go to a place that specializes in these types of cancer, like MD Anderson in Houston. There are several in the United States. They have the best doctors, the best imaging equipment, and access to more clinical trials. I was given 6 months to live in my hometown. 6 years later, after chemotherapy, radiation, and Whipple surgery, I am going strong. My risk of recurrence started dropping at 2 years, and now the risk is less than 10%. People have said they cannot find my story on my profile. I found it under my old username. Here is the link I posted at the 4-year mark. Story 6. I have incurable histamine intolerance. I have to be on a very restrictive diet. I am on all kinds of histamine blockers and still get histamine reactions that make me have to check out of life for at least half a day with no notice. It is so rare, there is no actual treatment plan for it, so it's a try it and see approach. Story 7. I can speak backwards. Say a sentence and I will say it backwards immediately. If you record me and play it back in reverse, you can hear your original sentence pretty well. Story 8. The amount of data I crunched for the search for extraterrestrial intelligence at home project. 5 quintillion floating point operations. Sadly, no evidence of a signal from intelligence from space. I was in the top 99.97%. Story 9. I am one of 5 to 10 people that are regularly called for Gulf architectural history. That combined with my knowledge of how to build and evaluate Gulf architecture in the field probably puts me into the top 0.1%. Story 10. I was rescued from a sex trafficking situation by someone in that world, an extremely rare occurrence in itself. I was very lucky to have the police and other agencies believe my story. They don't usually have much sympathy for someone sitting in front of them who is obviously on drugs and has been doing sex work. I was saved 3 times by the police when the trafficker or his people came after me. I got clean with only a couple of minor relapses by myself while working on accepting what happened to me and that it was my perfect boyfriend who did it to me. Accepting that my life was completely ruined, that I lost everything, that my dignity and confidence are gone, and that my family preferred to victim blame and cut me off. That I was now destitute and wholly dependent on the government for my survival was harder than any beating, rape, or other degrading thing I went through. Now I'm just a severely traumatized ex-junkie with a lifetime's worth of self-doubt, trust issues, anxiety, and depression that no amount of therapy can fix. But I survived. I never looked back. And unless someone I love waves the drug I was mostly hooked on in front of my face, that part is over too. I know my story isn't all that special, but it's not something I often talk about. From what I know, successfully getting out and getting clean is very rare, and I wanted to feel good about it. Story 11. I suffer from a combination of illnesses that make me severely disabled in a certain way. I have been invited to several studies and doctors from several European countries. I have tested medication that's not on the market for over 10 years. My disability doesn't have a name yet, but will probably be named after one of my doctors who has known me for over half my life. It started as a mental illness with psychosomatic seizures. During each seizure, a part of my brain tissue disconnects and sometimes dies. Long story short, my doctors have found out about 12 other people having a similar combination of symptoms, yet it was not properly documented or researched before. That kind of makes me a 0.1% of the population, sadly not on top. Story 12. I have met the same actor 3 times at 3 different points in my life, despite not working in the film industry, so I have to think I am in the 0.1% of that occurrence. He was Leo DiCaprio. Story 13. I'm one of 2 people in the international multi-billion-dollar company I work for who are able to run a specific script. I'm the only person in the company who can run it for non-Canadian-based accounts. If my laptop dies or I leave, the tool developers have to find a new way to do what I do, or it has the potential to result in many millions in audit penalties. I'm the 0.0002% in that aspect. Story 14. I qualify for height, but I'd say radio contest wins. I've won thousands of dollars in radio prizes, anywhere from concert tickets worth hundreds of dollars to free beer. Story 15. I have served on 3 criminal trial juries and was the foreman on all 3. We reached a verdict on all 3 cases. Guilty, 20 years in prison for attempted murder. Not guilty, rape. Guilty, first-degree murder, along with other charges. 30 years minimum, not yet sentenced. Story 16 was going to say height, but I've just fallen short according to this calculator. I'm 195 centimeters. Story 17. I was in the top 0.1% for math in my country back when I was in school. Not world, sadly. Edit. I totally forgot the difference between percentile and percent. Fixed. Story 18. My claim to fame. I am the only person on earth who has ever had my given and surname. While I do have a middle name, it is unnecessary. How do I know? My dad's last name was common and of Polish origins. His parents emigrated to America from Poland. My dad was born about 10 years later in 1910. Both his parents died, 2 days apart, due to the 1918 pandemic. Dad was taken in by several foster homes, and when he turned 14, he applied for a work permit. According to the county clerk, Dad did not exist. But my dad knew his birth date, he knew the doctor who delivered him, and the clerk put 2 and 2 together and found a birth record with a scribbled name. The county clerk then wrote what he believed the scribble said, and that became his surname, but it was unlike any other name. So all of his children were born with the made-up surname. At my age, mid-70s, I know every one of the 93 people who now share that made-up surname, and not one of them has the same given name as I do. Story 19. Number of books read. I am 37 and have read 7,240 since 2001. Of those, 2,766 are picture books, though. I am in the top 30 for my home country on Goodreads. Since I am a professional librarian with few social skills, this makes sense. Story 20. I've spent more time climbing trees than 99.9% of humans. I am an arborist and tree trimmer who has been climbing since 1981 and plan to retire in 3 years or so. Everyone else who was doing it when I started is either retired or has younger people do all the climbing, but I refuse to let the kids have all the fun. Story 21. Technically, I'm in the top 0.00005% at Beat Saber at around number 3,900 on Beat Saber leaderboard mod. Around top 0.1% of actual Beat Saber players. Story 22. Losing people due to death. I'm 44 years old, and I tried to make a list of all the people I've lost about 4 years ago when my 2-month-old nephew passed away. I wrote down 168 people before I stopped making the list because it was making me so sad, and I still occasionally remember people I didn't add to it. Just typing this makes me weep. Story 23. I can type 180 words per minute at 99% accuracy, 170 at 100% accuracy. At least I used to when I actually was the ultimate computer nerd. I'm sure I could still hit 155 to 160 even now though. Haven't seen anyone who could type faster, even online. I have an old Facebook post from hitting like 175 at 99% on a typing test. I think I was ranked number 1 out of 1.2 million. I can't remember. If people end up reading this, I'll end up linking it for proof. Story 24. Geez, I would have to add about 10 events in my life that would then maybe qualify me into the 0.1% bracket. Like I survived 2 motorcycle accidents, 2 car wrecks, fell down a dried-out waterfall, got rescued just in time when I fell into quicksand, missed a plane flight that then crashed and everyone on it was killed, fought a guy with a knife and won the fight, got chased by an African elephant and managed to survive, served as a platoon medic in an operational arena, and drove my car at 275 kilometers per hour on a national highway. Story 25. It sold 12.31 million copies. When I play online, I usually win most of the minigames, so I think I'm comfortably better than the average player. Given the global population of 8 billion, I only have to be slightly above average at Mario Party Superstars to be in the top 0.1% of the world. Some people who don't own the game are better than me, but probably not very many. Story 26. Perfect pitch is a musical ability that lets you hear pitches directly from sounds, as if you had a built-in tuner. In personal experience, I would describe it more like being able to memorize notes like you can memorize colors. According to the University of Chicago, it's 1 in 10,000 or otherwise 0.01%. Story 27. Listener on Spotify. I'm over 120,000 minutes every year. And in 2020, I almost broke 200,000 minutes. It was about 183,000. But I don't have the picture anymore. I listen to music every second I can. Every day. Story 28. Rare medical issues. I'm a 45-year-old with 2 rare chronic illnesses that usually affect children or patients in their 70s. I recently had surgery to remove ovaries and endometriosis. My endometriosis type was so rare the obstetrician gynecologist had never seen it before. It presented as a concrete-type structure inside my ureter. Usually, it looks woody on the outside of organs. My blood type is most common in South Asia and Africa. I'm a white American. Basically, I have to ask what are the rarest effects because I have always had the rare side effects for illness, procedures, and so on. Story 29. I was in a car accident where I hydroplaned off the road and hit a power pole, which broke the power pole clean off, and then spun around and hit an oak tree. The accident caused me brain damage to the point of internal hemorrhaging from all the thrashing around, and a ruptured spleen from my stomach hitting the steering wheel. The brain damage was severe enough to have killed me because blood kills brain cells when it contacts them. That's why the blood-brain barrier exists. Blood in the brain also increases cranial pressure, which causes further brain damage, but guess what? I lost approximately 1/3 of my blood through my ruptured spleen, which meant that my blood pressure and cranial pressure remained lower than they would have if I had not ruptured my spleen. It also meant that there was less blood to bleed onto my brain in general. Even so, I was in a coma for a week. However, once I woke from my coma, my brain recovered from the brain damage further and faster than expected, and I ended up not only being able to finish high school, I was 17, but eventually being able to finish a master's program. Not bad for having been in a coma that was a 3, the lowest score on the Glasgow Coma Scale, which I learned later meant that I had an 87% chance of never waking up again. Plus, it turned out that I had an extra spleen, and only one was damaged, so I still have one. All that combined has to put me in the top 0.1% of something, right? Luck, survivalism, biological stubbornness. Story 30. I guess I would have to say rock band player, particularly drums. By all things accounted for, and by that, I mean hardest songs fully completed versus songs actually owned, I am the 3rd-ranked drummer in the world on Rock Band currently. These are also other people's words. I rarely ever talk myself up about anything, but I wanted to find something as an answer. Laugh out loud. Story 31. I've experienced life as every type of sibling except being a twin. I was born and lived as an only child until I was 2. Then my little brother was born, and I became the eldest child. I turned 18 and found out I had a hidden half-sister who was a decade older than me, so I became a middle child. Then my brother died, and I became the youngest child. After that, my mom adopted his friend, and I became a middle child again. Of course, I will always feel like the eldest child. That's how I was raised initially, but I don't think more than 0.1% of the population has experienced this. So I must be in the top. Story 32. There is a particularly niche piece of software that is used daily by a couple of million people. I am the product manager for that software and have had my hands on it for a decade now, so out of the roughly 40 million people that have ever used it, I am the single most knowledgeable person on Earth. Thankfully, they pay me to do it. Otherwise, it would be a thoroughly useless well of knowledge. Story 33. On my old Reddit account before I deleted it, I managed to get #1 post on Reddit and hit silver, gold, and platinum while at the #1 spot. This allowed me to get inducted into a Reddit secret society known as Super Popular Club, as well as an exclusive Discord, which contained only about 20 or so Reddit users at the time. Since awards were removed, it's impossible to get in again. If there are any remaining Reddit users from the subgroup, I can easily prove I was there since I made a post there that only they would know and be able to quickly find.